From ancient prophets to modern-day visionaries, the ability to foresee the future has fascinated and confounded people for centuries. Maybe you have had moments from a dream or daydream that ended up happening exactly as you envisioned. If you're curious and can relate, this video will discuss a brief history, media depictions, skepticism about precognition, as well as what we can do to foster positive communication about precognition to create a safe environment so individuals feel comfortable enough to share their experiences without a fear of societal rejection or reprisal. Precognition refers to the ability or phenomenon of gaining knowledge about future events before they happen without any logical explanation based on current knowledge. It's often linked to extrasensory perception or psychic phenomena, where individuals claim to have visions or feelings about future occurrences. People who believe they possess this ability describe it as receiving flashes of insight, dreams, or sudden intuitions that later align with future events. The belief in precognition has roots stretching back to ancient civilizations. In many early cultures, such as ancient Greece, Rome, and Egypt, individuals believed in the concept of prophecy. Oracles, seers, and prophets were often revered as intermediaries between the divine and the human world. In the Middle Ages, however, those who claimed to have precognitive abilities often faced suspicion. The rise of organized religion, particularly in Europe, led to persecution of those deemed to possess unnatural abilities. Accusations of witchcraft or demonic possession were common, and such individuals could be ostracized, imprisoned, or executed. In more modern times, particularly in the 19th and 20th centuries, precognition and other psychic phenomena often became subjects of interest within the emerging field of parapsychology. However, despite ongoing research, the field has generally remained skeptical, and those who claim precognitive experiences often face ridicule. Historically, the way people who claim to have precognition have been treated has depended largely on cultural context. In many ancient cultures, such individuals were revered and respected. Oracles and prophets were seen as vessels for divine insight. In the medieval era, the Christian church often regarded claims of precognition as heretical, associating it with witchcraft. Those claiming to have these abilities could be persecuted. In the modern era, people have often been met with skepticism or ridicule, though in the last 5 to 10 years, spirituality in its holistic sense is widely accepted. In some cases, there has been a fascination with the precognitive ability, such as during the rise of the spiritualism movement, but many have faced societal pressure to keep their claims quiet. In Hollywood, precognition is often portrayed dramatically, emphasizing potential dangers and conflicts. Films like The Minority Report, The Dead Zone, and Next focus on characters burdened by their knowledge of future events. These depictions frequently present precognition as a gift with heavy emotional and ethical implications, such as preventing tragic events, but at the cost of personal suffering. On social media, precognition is often discussed alongside broader topics like astrology, psychic readings, and spiritual awakenings. Some platforms have communities where individuals share their experiences, but there's also a degree of skepticism, trolling, and mockery from non-believers. So why are people so afraid of precognition? Well, this stems from several factors. First would be a loss of control. Knowing future events may make people feel that their choices are no longer of consequence, or that they don't matter, and that their lives are predestined or outside their control. Number 2, there's moral and ethical implications and concerns. If someone knows about an impending disaster, what responsibility do they bear, if any? These moral dilemmas can be quite paralyzing. Number 3 is fear of the unknown. The idea that some people can know the future challenges fundamental assumptions about how the world works. And then number 4, there is the obvious of persecution. Those who claim to have precognitive abilities have historically faced persecution, ostracism, or even violence, particularly when such abilities were misunderstood or feared. All of these become compounded over time, and it takes a great deal of effort to change the narrative. People struggle to believe in precognition for several reasons. First, there's a lack of scientific evidence. Many demand empirical scientific proof, but the phenomenon doesn't fit neatly into the framework of conventional science. Secondly, there's coincidence versus real precognition. Skeptics often argue that people are simply remembering the instances where their quote-unquote predictions happened to come true, ignoring many times when they didn't. Thirdly, there's a fear of the supernatural. Precognition challenges rational, materialistic views of the world, and this can make people very uncomfortable. And fourthly, social stigma. Fear of being ridiculed or dismissed discourages people from publicly believing in or exploring precognition to begin with. People who claim to have precognitive abilities often fear persecution or ridicule. They may worry about being dismissed as delusional or fraudulent. There is also the ethical responsibility. If someone foresees a disaster but can't stop it, they might experience a tremendous amount of guilt. And then there's the factor of isolation. So those who believe they have such a gift may feel very alone, especially if they lack a community that understands them. To foster awareness and a more positive perception of this ability, globally we can focus on empowerment. We need to frame precognition as a tool for making informed decisions and improving lives, rather than as a burden. Secondly, education. The spiritual community is typically the first to encourage open discussions of demystifying the phenomenon and explaining how it fits into a broader understanding of human intuition. That being said, we cannot have spirituality without science and vice versa. So the more the scientific community and the spiritual communities can collaborate, the more both will be able to evolve in a more productive manner over time. Thirdly, there's community support. We can use online platforms such as YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram to provide support networks where people can share experiences without a fear of judgment or reprisal. Additionally, we can highlight success stories. Social media platforms enable us to showcase instances where people's precognitive experiences have led to positive outcomes, fostering a more optimistic view. There have been many studies on precognition. It remains a controversial topic. Research conducted by parapsychologists, such as experiments on predictive dreams, often yield results that suggest more than just coincidence. However, these studies frequently face criticism for lack of replication and scientific rigor. Notable researchers in the field of parapsychology include J.B. Ryan, who is known for his work on ESP at Duke University, Daryl Bem, who is a psychologist who conducted experiments suggesting people can predict future events better than chance would allow, and Dean Radin, who is a leading figure in parapsychological research. Despite these efforts, mainstream science still largely rejects precognition due to a lack of robust, reproducible evidence, but it's becoming increasingly evident that people are curious to learn about gifts in parapsychology and are more open to discussion about psychic abilities. There's been a growing interest in psychic abilities and spiritual phenomena in recent years, especially with the rise of alternative spirituality and wellness movements. However, there remains a strong divide between believers and skeptics. That being said, I think it's important to share 3 prominent organizations that offer forums for people interested in parapsychology and psychic phenomena to gather and meet like-minded souls. First, there's the Rhine Research Center. Based in North Carolina, it explores ESP and related phenomena. Secondly, we have the Parapsychological Association. This is a professional organization dedicated to the scientific study of psychic phenomena. Thirdly, we have the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which focuses on consciousness research, including psychic phenomena like precognition. Before I get into the last segment, I wanted to share one of my own experience with precognition. I remember being between 4 and 6 years old, walking through a field with my mom, and this field was between our home and my grandmother's house. And it was just the 2 of us, and we were taking our time, walking hand in hand. And I recall looking up at the sky, then my mom, and saying, "It's gonna rain today." Now keep in mind it was a bright sunny day. There was white puffy clouds in the sky. My mom looked at me, she looked at the sky, and I could see the look of confusion on her face, but she didn't say anything. So we just continued to walk. She didn't tell me I was wrong, and I said nothing more of it. And what happened later that day? It rained. And my mom remembered that event years later. Now, she could have dismissed what I said or told me that I was wrong. She could have done any number of things to dampen my spirit or reject what I expressed, but she didn't. And maybe she was too caught off guard to think about a rebuttal, or perhaps it was a simple kindness that prevented her from immediately saying, "No, it's sunny outside, it's not going to rain." But whatever the case, it happened. And I've had many instances in this life of seeing things happen before they actually take place. It's very commonplace for me. So if you too have had occurrences of seeing the future before it happens, I'd really love to hear about your experiences. And if you're someone who wishes to share, my contact information is in the description box below. The last thing I'd like to discuss in this video is how we, as a collective, can make people feel safe discussing parapsychology and niche topics such as precognition. We can promote openness. We can foster an environment where people can share without fear of ridicule. We can encourage scientific exploration. This entails us being inquisitive while continuing to be compassionate and respectful about what we don't understand. If we create our reality in each moment, let's be advocates for open-minded research about psychic phenomena. And we can also build supportive communities. We have the ability in this day and age to establish spaces, both online and offline, where people with precognitive abilities can connect, share experiences, and find validation about their gifts. If you've stayed with me to the end, thank you so much. This channel is a safe space for curious minds to discuss the taboo nature of parapsychology in an open-minded manner. So if you're interested in sharing your own innate abilities, personal experiences, or research, reach out on WhatsApp. The contact information is in the description box below, and I'll be in touch. And if you want to watch more videos about parapsychology, be sure to click the links on the screen.